And I'd like to take a closer look at the Russian assault on Azovstal and bring in Bradley Bowman from Washington, D.C. He's a former U.S. Army officer, now at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy's think tank. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Heavy fighting around the Azovstal steelworks. It has become the last remaining pocket of Ukrainian resistance in the strategic port of Mariupol, which has otherwise been battered. Why do you think Russia still hasn't managed to capture the site?
Thank you for the opportunity to join you, and thank you for the question. I think the primary answer to your question is the determined resistance of the Ukrainian people defending their homes. And, as many of us have said from the beginning, you should never underestimate the determination of a free people fighting an aggressor and defending their homes. So I think that's a large part of it. But when students of history look at this, or I'm reminded a bit of Thermopylae, where you had a small remnant of Spartans defending a pass against overwhelming odds, or Americans might think of the Alamo. I mean, this is just really incredible stuff. The Russians have been incredibly brutal and killed many there in Mariupol. And I think Putin seems determined to establish an unimpeded land bridge from Russia to Crimea, Russian-occupied Crimea, and to secure his grasp on a warm water port there in Mariupol on the Sea of Azov.
Now, the New York Times has reported that the United States has supplied intelligence to the Ukrainians, which has been used to target and kill Russian generals. Can I get your reaction to that?
In the early stages of following Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, the United States was slow in providing intelligence to Ukrainian forces for purposes of targeting invading Russian forces. I and others called for that, and I'm happy that over time, the U.S. has started to systematically provide just that. Intelligence can be used to target Russian forces. Now, given the problems that the Russians have had with logistics and sustainment and combined arms operations, and frankly, the absence of a non-commissioned officer corps like the Ukrainians have and like Americans have, many Russian generals have had to come to the front lines. And when they've done that, they've often been using insecure communications, whether it be actually phones or radios. And so many of them have been killed. Some reports say a dozen or more Russian generals. And so whether we've specifically provided intelligence to target generals is unclear to me, but we've certainly provided information intelligence to target Russian forces. And those Russian forces include general officers, and some of them will be killed in the process.
I just want to ask you, how decisive is this ability to gain information on targets and hit them during this phase of the war?
I think the provision of U.S. intelligence and intelligence from our Western partners is incredibly important. It helps Ukrainians react in advance of Russian offensives, and it helps the Ukrainians employ their offensive capabilities more effectively. We can give them the best weapons in the world, but if they don't know what to shoot at or when to shoot or where to shoot, that's a whole different thing. So it's really a powerful combo when you take the bravery of the Ukrainians, the weapons that have been provided by the West, and then you combine that with intelligence. That's a formidable combination.
Now, speaking of weapons, a German press reports that the German government is preparing to send 7 self-propelling Howitzers to Ukraine by the end of June. Is that the kind of equipment that's needed, and why isn't the U.S. Providing it for them?
It absolutely is the equipment that Ukraine needs, and the United States is providing equipment to provide that. We've committed to providing, and much of it has already provided, 90 of the self-propelled 155 millimeter howitzers. And that's exactly the kind of weapons that the Ukrainians will need as the battle shifts from Kyiv, as we've seen in recent weeks, to the east and the Donbass, which is more open. It will be more of an artillery battle, a long-range fires battle dependent on artillery, howitzers, counter radar, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. So I'm so pleased that the Germans are doing that. America has done a lot already, sending 90 howitzers. I hope we send more. I hope our European allies send more, because this could be a long fight, and the Ukrainians are going to need all the artillery they can get.
With that in mind, as Russia focuses on the east of Ukraine in this latest phase of the war, what conditions do you think will be most important in determining who ultimately wins?
Winning will, you have to define winning, right? I mean, the Russians have already taken roughly 20% of Ukrainian territory, but they've lost 25% of the assembled forces in the process. And so I think this is a long-term grand strategic disaster for Vladimir Putin. The primary victims are the Ukrainian people. The secondary victims, frankly, are the Russian people and Russia, which is more isolated and weak than ever. But I do fear that this is going to last a long time, and we're going to have to watch this May 9 anniversary very closely to see whether Putin de-escalates or escalates. If past his prologue, I fear he'll escalate.
So in your assessment, not just the invasion of Ukraine, but specifically Russian progress in its renewed offensive in the Donbass should be seen as a disaster?
This unprovoked invasion by Russia is absolutely a disaster. So many have died. I mean, let's not forget that Russia invaded and annexed Crimea in 2014, fueled a separatist movement in the Donbass since 2014, where roughly 14,000 Ukrainians have been killed. And now we've seen the largest invasion in Europe since World War II. And a lot of the images that we're seeing of places like Mariupol remind many of us of the images from World War II, honestly, often from Nazi aggression. So it's quite ironic that Putin is using the fraudulent argument of denazifying Ukraine when he's undertaking many of the same tactics that Nazi Germany used against Russia.
Bradley Bowman, former U.S. Army officer, now at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us on DW News.
Thank you. Thank you.